So good morning. Today we'll be starting with plasma membrane. So before moving on to biological membranes, there is 2 or 3 points that becomes very essential to know about the biological membrane. It is that most membranes are impermeable to most polar or charged solutes, but are permeable to non-polar compounds. They are about 5 to 8 nanometer, that is 50 to 80 angstrom thick. And when proteins are protrude out from the outer or the inner surface, they appear as trilaminar. Now let's get this concept. So this is actually the development of the plasma membrane. So if you look, the first model of plasma membrane was proposed in 1926 by Goddard and Grendel. And later on, it was further modified and proposed in 1943 by Davison and Danieli. And if you look into these two membranes, one thing is very clear, which they had proposed, was that there is a layer of polar fatty acids. There is in fact 2 layers of polar fatty acids. In the Goddard and the Grendel model, we are not seeing the presence of as such any protein groups, but later on in the Davison and the Danieli model, they showed the presence of protein. However, the model was further modified and finalized, and the present model is based on the 1972 Singer and Nicholson model. If we look into this model, there are the plasma membrane, as I said, is a trilaminar membrane when it is observed from the outer surface. So it has 2 bilayers, and the protein seems to protrude out through the membrane, or the protein seems to remain attached either to the outer surface or to the inner surface. So we can see from this membrane structure that there is a lipid bilayer. The tails of the lipid molecules are facing each other while the heads are facing outwards, which was a feature in the previous 2 models also. The proteins are dispersed within the membrane. The proteins may be peripheral, that is, they are attached to one surface of the membrane, either to the outer surface or to the inner surface. And if you can see, the proteins are transmembrane, that is, they pass through the membrane also. However, in this particular membrane, we are not we are not seeing the presence of carbohydrates, but Singer and Nicholson also proposed that there are carbohydrates present on the membrane, and the carbohydrates remain attached either to the lipid molecules as glycolipids or to the protein molecules as glycoproteins. Now, if I look into this picture, you can see the structural orientation of the proteins has been given, but this is a simplified view. This is a more complex view of this particular structure. Now, let's compare the updated view. The updated view was proposed by Donald Engelmann in 205, where he said that in the Singer-Nicholson model, the proteins are present, but they show an extreme mosaic manner. You see how the proteins are being protruded. The green parts are the proteins. So the proteins are extremely present in a mosaic manner. This was a small update that was done over the Singer-Nicholson model by Donald Engelmann. As per your syllabus, we will stick to the Singer-Nicholson model. So we are now moving on to the fluid mosaic model for the structure of biological membranes, as was proposed by Singer and Nicholson in 1972. This is a very simplified view. So if we look into the simplified view, there is a lipid bilayer. We'll be coming one by one. There are peripheral proteins. Look at the orange blotches. And then we have this integral proteins. These are the transmembrane proteins moving from one side of the membrane to the other side. The tails, the pink tails you can see, they are either the amino terminal tails or the carboxy terminal tails. For example, for this protein, this is the amino tail and this is the carboxy terminal tail. The integral proteins can form membrane channels, or they can give membrane integrity. However, in this model, you can also see the presence of oligosaccharide chains. The oligosaccharide chains are either bound to the proteins in form of glycoproteins or to the lipid in form of glycolipid. Another point to note is that the membrane has quite a frequent composition of cholesterol present within it. This is a bit more complex view of the plasma membrane, where they have shown that the plasma membrane chemically can be divided into three distinct regions, a hydrophilic region. So the polar part of the lipid are hydrophilic, that they can interact with water. The interior part of the membrane, which is made up of the tails of the lipid, are completely hydrophobic in nature. And again, the polar heads are hydrophilic. Now let's look at the colors. You can see the transmembrane integral proteins. These are the peripheral proteins. And then there are these cholesterol molecules. They have shown in black. We have some green blotch here. This is a present concept. I'll come to this later. These are lipid rafts. And we have some anchored proteins. These are proteins anchored to the lipid molecules. These are carbohydrate anchored to proteins, so glycoproteins. So these lipids, these purple color lipids, are the lipids which are in close association with the proteins. Another thing to note in this picture is that if you look into the tails of the lipid molecules, you will see that the tails are not very strict. They are wavy. So it shows that this area is capable of movement. In fact, when we had studied receptor, I had told you that they exist as monomers, and the receptors can move through the plane of the membrane when a ligand approaches towards the receptors. So the wavy nature of the bilayer actually signifies that molecular movement is allowed in between the plane of the membrane. Now let's take up the individual parts of the membrane one by one. So let's start with the lipids. As I said, the membrane is made up of lipid, protein and carbohydrate. So we start with lipid because that forms the skeleton of the plasma membrane. As I said, that the lipids basically are the phospholipids, which form a which forms a bilayer. And as you can see in the bilayer, the polar heads are facing outward and is interacting with the aqueous phase on either side. So on the either side, the polar heads are interacting with the aqueous phase. And the hydrophobic region or the tail is facing each other. Now, you can see that the proteins are embedded in the bilayer and they are held by hydrophobic interactions. The proteins are held in the bilayer by hydrophobic interactions between the membrane lipids and the hydrophobic domains of the protein. So those proteins which are integral in nature, this area of the proteins are hydrophobic because they are interacting with the hydrophobic lipid bilayer in this region. The individual lipid and protein units in a membrane form a fluid mosaic. So it's not a definite pattern, it's a mosaic pattern. Further, the membrane mosaic is fluid because most of the molecules interact among themselves via non-covalent interactions. So all the reactions mainly found here are non-covalent, as you can assume, so they are reversible. And further, the protein molecules are free to move in the bilayer, hence the fluidity. So it's fluid mosaic model. Fluidity because the proteins, the lipids can move in the plane of the layer. Mosaic because the proteins and dispersed in the membrane, giving it a very mosaic appearance. As I said, The lipid bilayer is 3 nanometer thick. So this is the lipid bilayer. It is 3 nanometer thick. Moving into this portion, you can see this is the lipid bilayer. So the lipid bilayer is 3 nanometer thick. And the hydrocarbon core is made up of the fatty acyl groups, which are impermeable to polar solutes. The hydrophobic core is made up of fatty acids. So let's look into this fatty acid. So this is a fatty acid molecule. This is the hydrophilic head, and this is the tail. You can see the tail. The tail is made up of methyl and CH2 and CH3. And this is the hydrophilic head. So the lipid bilayer is made up of joining of this kind of individual lipid molecules. There is a bend in the fatty acid structure where there is a unsaturated bond situated here. If we look into the phospholipids found in the lipid bilayer, so these are the very common and the 4 major phospholipids found in the bilayer. Phosphatidylethanolamin. If you look into the structure, it's a neutrally charged phospholipid as one positive and one negative. Phosphatidylserine is the second phospholipid. If you look into the structure, it has 2 negative charge, so it's a charged phospholipid. Again, phosphatidylcholine. Again, it is a neutral phospholipid. These 3 phospholipids are derived from glycerol. These 3, phosphatidylethanolamine, phosphatidylserine, and phosphatidylcholine are derived from glycerol. The last molecule is sphingomyelin. Sphingomyelin is derived from the molecule, you can see it's written here, sphingosine. So this molecule is basically a sphingolipid. It's a different chemical, a bit different chemical. It is derived from sphingosine. And if you look into the membrane composition of phospholipids, this is based on the erythrocyte membrane phospholipid. The erythrocyte membrane is the best membrane that could have been extensively studied, because we all know that the cell is basically devoid. The RBCs are basically devoid of any functional organelles. And once the interior mass can be removed, the cell can be studied very well. And if you look into the phospholipid composition, in the membrane, the main phospholipid, as you can see, is phosphatidylethanolamine. So this one, phosphatidylethanolamine is the main component of the membrane. Phosphatidylcholine and sphingomyelin. So it's phosphatidylethanolamine, phosphatidylcholine, and sphingosmyelin. So that is the main component of the phospholipid component of the membrane. Then there is a small percentage of phosphatidylserine also available in the membrane, and the other phospholipids together form 5% of the membrane. Now, if we look into the distribution of the phospholipids between the 2 bilayer, there is an inner surface and there is an outer surface. In the inner surface, as you can see, some phospholipids, for example, phosphatidylethanolamine, phosphatidylserine, phosphatidylinositol, excuse me, phosphatidylinositol 4-phosphate, 4,5-bisphosphate, and phosphatidic acid. These are present more. And on the outer surface, if you can see that we have the presence of phosphatidylcholine and sphingomyelin in greater excess. Now let's look into, this is very important, because if we look into this particular phospholipid, phosphatidylserine, you can see that the major part of the phospholipid is present on the inner surface of the membrane. What do we mean by the inner surface? So it is attached, it's present on this bilayer. There are 2 layers of the lipid. The upper half is the outer bilayer, the lower half is the inner bilayer. So what happens? Phosphatidylserine is mainly located in the inner bilayer. Now, when there is apoptosis as you have studied this chapter, and there is the start of the extrinsic pathway within the cellular cytoplasm. What happens? The phosphatidylserine from the inner leaflet migrates to the outer leaflet. I said that this is a big hallmark of apoptosis, migration of phosphatidylserine from the inner leaflet to the outer leaflet. There's another importance of phosphatidylserine. It has been seen that the phosphatidylserine migration from inner to outer leaflet is also essential for blood clot formation. I'm to say for the proper action of platelets. So the localization of the phospholipids to a particular layer, and when the need arises, the movement of phosphatidylserine from the inner to the outer leaflet has certain important biological consequences. As I said, in case of the, in case of apoptosis, the phosphatidylserine exposure is a hallmark to apoptosis. Another one just now I said, when the platelet is when there's a blood clot formation, when the platelet is functional, that is also indicated by the movement of the phosphatidylserine from the inner leaflet to the outer leaflet. Now, let's come. So we have dealt with the phospholipids. So as I said, these are the majority of the phospholipids, and this is the distribution of the phospholipids between the two bilayers. Now let's move on to the glycolipid molecules. So as you can see, glycolipid molecules are carbohydrate molecules being attached to lipid molecules. So this one is galactocerebroside, where a galactose molecule has been, it's a neutral glycolipid. Okay, so a galactose molecule has been attached to a fatty acid, to a lipid molecule. And this one is a ganglioside. And as you can see, the ganglioside contains negatively charged NANA or N-acetylneuronic acid, is basically sialic acid. The presence of this in the membrane, in fact, helps a lot of immune cells to identify which is the host membrane and which is not the host membrane. So this is a big difference. The presence of sialic acid in our membrane actually helps the immune cells to identify the host membrane or the self membrane from the non-self membrane. Sialic acid is typically found in human membranes. So this is N-acetylneuronic acid, and along with it we have certain carbohydrate molecules such as galactose, and we have N-acetyl galactosamine. So this is a ganglioside. The presence of ganglioside is very important, and another important thing you should see, that the sialic acids are basically negatively charged. So they impart negative charge to the lipid molecule. This is a neutral glycolipid, but this is a negatively charged glycolipid. This glycolipid is of special importance, as I said, because it contains sialic acid, but a special component of the plasma membrane of human cells. And now coming, so we have seen that glycolipids, how glycolipids or the carbohydrates are attached to the membrane lipids. Now we are moving on to the proteins. As I said in my initial at the beginning, that proteins are of two categories. One, that is the peripheral, and the other, that is the integral. The peripheral proteins remain attached to the surface. It remains attached to the surface, to either the outer surface or to the inner surface. But the integral membrane proteins penetrate through the membrane. Now, what are the bonds that are usually found? As I initially said, that all the bonds that are involved are non-covalent bonds. So there might be ionic and hydrogen bond interactions. There might be amphipathic alpha helix. So alpha helix is a specialized structure, I mean, say, specialized structural format of a protein. There might be loops. So this is how the protein may be arranged, or they may remain attached to the integral membrane by simple electrostatic bonds. So these are the different bonds, these are the different interactions a peripheral protein might have either with the lipid or with the integral protein itself. When the peripheral protein is having interaction with the lipid, they are known as lipoproteins. But if the peripheral protein, this doesn't have any other special names, these are lipoproteins. So various ways, this is another picture, this one was from Matthews Biochemistry and this is from Bruce Albers. As you can see, the existence of the proteins in the lipid bilayer. So there are almost 8 categories of the different formats. They can penetrate through the bilayer, they can remain attached to one half of the bilayer, they can remain anchored. You can see this red small carved lines. It indicates that the proteins are not a part of the membrane. Okay, the proteins are attached to the bilayer by certain chemical groups. It can be a prenyl group, it can be a palmitoyl group. These are groups present within the fatty acids. So here also you can see the protein is passing through the membrane and is also attached. Here also the protein is passing through the membrane and here attached. So this is basically a GPI anchor. As you can see, there is a phospholipid, there is a phospholipid. This is a carbohydrate molecule. So this is basically the structure for GPI anchor, which I'll show you in detail. So as I said, the proteins can pass through the membrane. The proteins can remain attached to one half of the membrane. I mean to say they can remain intimately attached to one half of the membrane, or they may hang from the membrane. Whatever, just look at this picture and see that there is no symmetry between the two halves. That is, some proteins, for example, the proteins 6 and 8 are present on the outer surface, whereas the proteins 4, 5 and 7 are present on the inner surface. So the distribution of the proteins on the two halves are not constant. There is a difference in the distribution of the protein. So that gives rise to asymmetry of the membrane. The membrane is fluid, the membrane is mosaic, and the membrane is asymmetric. The word asymmetric is given because, as we can see, there is no symmetry in the distribution of the proteins on the two halves. If you look at the lipid composition also, there was no symmetry in distribution of the lipid composition in the two halves. Some phospholipids are found more on the inner half, some are found more on the outer half. So these are the two properties of the membrane. I mean to say the lipid property and the protein property that gives the membrane the attribute of being asymmetric. So the membrane is fluid, the membrane is mosaic, and the membrane is asymmetric also. As you can see, this is a picture of Lehninger. So this is a peripheral protein, this is an integral protein. There is another category of protein, the picture of which has been shown here. So this is an amphitropic protein. Now what is interesting about amphitropic protein is that these proteins can remain anchored to the membrane or they can open up. At times, G proteins behave in this manner. If you remember, I had told in my class about the GPCR coupled signaling molecules. And if you remember, there was this G protein having the alpha, beta and gamma subunit. Whenever our ligand receptor signaling occurred properly, what did we see? The alpha subunit used to open up and move. So that is an amphitropic molecule. So the protein molecule, if needed, can remain attached to the membrane, or at times the protein molecule can come out of the membrane. So this property certain proteins have, and since certain proteins have this property of proteins is known as amphitropic property. Peripheral proteins can be easily separated from the membrane, but to separate integral proteins, detergent is needed. Detergent can usually bind with integral proteins and coat them, and can thus separate integral proteins from the lipid bilayer. So I told about the amphitropic proteins. This is the structure of the integral protein glycophorin, which is found on the erythrocyte membrane. If you look, it has an amino terminal domain on the outside. It has a transmembrane region, and it has a carboxy terminal domain on the inside. So this is a typical example of an integral protein that was first observed in RBC. Now let's see that there are a variety of integral proteins depending on which side the carboxy terminal resides and on which side the amino terminal resides. So depending on the presence of the carboxy and the amino terminal, the membrane proteins can be divided into 6 basic categories. If we look into the type 1 category, the amino terminal lies on the inside and the carboxy terminal of the polypeptide lies on the outside. So this is type 2. Type 1. The amino terminal lies on the outside, and the carboxy terminal lies on the inside. Most of the receptors we have studied, specifically RTK receptors, have this kind of arrangement, where the amino terminal is majorly outside and the carboxy terminal is majorly in the inside of the cytoplasm, on the cytoplasmic surface. Next, coming to type 2, the amino terminal lies on the inside and the carboxy terminal lies on the inside. Now coming to the other 3 types, as you can see, these are multipass membrane proteins. That is, they have multiple regions. So they travel this way, comes through the membrane, folds, again moves through the membrane, folds, again moves through the membrane. So this is a type 3 membrane made up of only one polypeptide, which spans the membrane quite a number of times. Type 5, as you can see, these are different polypeptides, but the polypeptides are held in the bilayer together by covalently linked lipids. So the protein molecules, these are separate polypeptides, but they held together by covalent interactions. Then we have a type 6 protein that is held to the membrane by an anchor. It is not a part of the membrane. It is attached to the membrane by an anchor. And I missed this type 4 category. The type 4 category, it is not only a transmembrane protein, but it can also anchor itself to the membrane. So depending on how the integral proteins are dispersed within the membrane, the integral proteins can be divided into 6 broad categories. These are the different, this is a picture to show you the different modes of association of some known proteins. As you can see, this is the RAS. RAS is an anchored protein. You have studied RAS. You have heard about annexin V, which was associated with apoptosis. So this is a protein. You see the difference of RAS and annexin V. RAS is an anchored protein. Annexin V is associated with the membrane. And these are typically cadherins. These are typically cytoskeletal proteins. So as you can see, they are passing through the membrane. So this is a picture just to show you how the different proteins are dispersed within the membrane. And as I was talking, that's the membrane proteins can be present on the outer surface, or they can pass through the membrane. So if they are remaining attached to the outer surface, they are known as peripheral. If they pass through the membrane, they are known as integral. But on and off, again I told that some membrane proteins are linked, are attached to the phospholipid. So the linkage can be through a variety of chemical structures. For example, if you look into the first protein of this picture, you see that the cysteine is attached to the palmitoyl group on the fatty acid. Here, this is again a glycine. A glycine is attached to the mydestol group of fatty acid. And again, a cysteine attached to the farnesyl group of fatty acid. So these are certain protein modifications that occur. And interestingly, all these modifications gives these proteins certain specific roles. A point to be noted here is that the farnesylated, where is the farnesyl? The farnesylated and the palmitoylated membrane proteins are always found on the inner surface of the plasma membrane. So this category and this category is always found on the inner surface of the plasma membrane, while the mydestol group can be found on the inner surface as well as the outer surface. And this is a very important category of protein known as GPI anchored protein, always found on the outer surface of plasma membrane. As you can see, this is the main protein which is anchored to a phosphatidyl ethanolamine group, which is again attached to a carbohydrate, small carbohydrate residue, and this carbohydrate is again attached to phosphatidyl inositol. So the full name is glycosyl phosphatidyl inositol anchors. These anchors are always and invariably found to be attached on the outer surface of the plasma membrane. So this is how the proteins, the anchored proteins, remain attached either to the inner surface or the anchor proteins remain attached to the outer surface. To repeat, the palmitoyl and the farnesylated proteins always remain on the inner surface. The GPI anchors always remain on the outer surface, and the mydestol group proteins, link proteins, can be found on the inner surface as well as the outer surface. This is a picture of Matthews. I just wanted to show you this picture to show you how the molecular structure of the GPI anchor. So you can see these are the carbohydrate molecules, the green, 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 blue. Okay, this is the inositol molecule, and this is the ethanolamine molecule, and this is the protein, and this is how the GPI is anchored to the plasma membrane. This is the molecular, you can see the palmitoyl, the mydestol, then there is a farnesyl group, then there is a geranyl group. So these are anchored proteins.